Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, Merry Christmas! Hope everyone has had the most wonderful, magical, lovely day and has just ate everything in their entire fridge, because that's exactly what I'll be doing. For starters, I don't want to talk about the makeup. I don't want to talk about the nails. I've lost 2 now. I'm having an absolute mare. So the the Christmas Eve video I've just filmed, which came out yesterday. I filmed the whole thing in slow motion. I fixed it, but I did film it in slow motion. And then I thought, I'll be good. I'll change up my makeup a little bit, so you can see a bit of a difference between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and it's just gone horribly. I don't want to talk about it. I've gone delirious. I've had about 6 coffees today, and I'm currently drinking a Monster Energy, and I feel like I'm losing my tiny mind. So yeah, if you think I look like a wreck, so do I. Just don't mention it. I don't need you to tell me. I know. I am hoping that we are far away enough from each other that you can't really tell. I had a nightmare with white eyeliner. Who uses white eyeliner? How do you use white eyeliner? How do people use it and make it look good? Because I thought, I'll stick some white eyeliner in. No, it was not good. It was not good at all. So I hope everyone's had such a lovely day and has got everything they ever wanted, etc, etc. I'm not a massively Christmas person, but I am wearing a Santa hat to feel slightly more festive, and a red lip. Couldn't get more festive than me. I'm basically an elf. Unfortunately for you, I have come to ruin your Christmas. So I think I'd heard of this story, but I didn't know the ins and outs of this story. Today I'm going to be talking about Ronald Gene Simmons, and the trigger warning list I have for this is the longest I've ever had, so that just kind of shows you exactly what kind of case it's going to be today. Also, I keep forgetting to mention it, but if you could like and subscribe, I would very, very, very much appreciate it. I'm having a bit of a fight with YouTube at the moment, where my shorts seem to be getting a reasonable amount of traction, and some videos do really well, and then I'll upload a video and it will get like 2 views in 2 weeks, and it just makes absolutely no sense. So if you could like and subscribe my videos, or even comment, just any interaction you can possibly have, it'd make a massive difference to me and I'd properly appreciate it. And it's Christmas today, so do something Christmassy for me. Thank you. So let's get on with it. This is the case of Ronald Gene Simmons. Trigger warnings for this case, as I said, it's a very extensive list, and today's case involves child sexual abuse, rape, death of children, domestic violence, and I can't really say that is it, because that is a very heavy topics, but that is all the ones I have for you today. Trigger warning as always, and it's absolutely inevitable in this case, strong language. Ronald Gene Simmons was born on the 15th of July 1940 in Chicago, and he was the only child of Loretta and William. In 1943, William, Ronald's father, would unfortunately die of a stroke whilst Ronald was just 2 years old. His mother, Loretta, remarried within the year to someone named William Griffin, and he actually worked in the US Army. He had absolutely no problem with taking on the role as stepdad, and because Ronald was so young, he didn't massively notice a switch. But what did affect Ronald was having a dad or a stepdad who was in the US Army meant that he had to move around a lot. So Ronald's life lacked consistency. Because he was always moving around all the time, Ronald gave up basically trying to make friends and isolated himself, and eventually did become depressed because of this. He felt there was no point in kind of making friends with people, because you'd get close to someone and then next thing you know, you're leaving them, moving, and you'll never see them again. In 1957, when he was just 17 years old, he dropped out of school and went to go and join the US Navy. He was eventually accepted once he turned 18. Whilst Ronald was stationed in Washington, he ran into a girl named Becky, and as soon as he set his sights on her, he knew that she was the one for him. He knew that she was who he was destined to marry. He was smitten. And in 1958, they welcomed their first child together, a son who they named Ronald Gene Simmons, but he went by Gene. I never get why you name your child exactly the same thing as you. I don't get it. Shortly after their son was born, they got married and they moved to New Mexico. Becky decided to become a stay-at-home mum, as Ronald was travelling quite a lot for work. 2 years after they'd married and moved, they welcomed a baby girl named Sheila. Now, you know it's a bad case when I'm starting with the awful shit already. I'm only on page 2. And after Sheila was born, Ronald felt like him and Sheila had this deep, strong connection and bond. He seemed to be way more interested in Sheila than he was in his son, Gene. And he said that they felt like they were meant to be together. Like, he couldn't bear the thought of going back to work because he would be leaving Sheila. He was like obsessed with his child, which is okay to a point, to love and be obsessed with your child, but there is a line. There's a line when it becomes really weird. 2 years after Sheila was born, the couple welcomed their third child, a baby boy named William. After the arrival of their third child, Ronald realised that he did need to go back to work in order to support his growing family of young children as well. So he decided to leave the Navy and join the army. Now, it was obvious to everyone that Ronald loved Sheila more than his sons, more than his other children. But this love quickly developed into abuse. And Ronald began sexually abusing Sheila from a very, very, very young age. And everyone in the family seemed to be completely oblivious to this. No one knew that this was going on. And Sheila also didn't know what was happening because she was too young at the time to understand. As Sheila grew older, she started to realise exactly what her dad was doing to her, and she hated him for it. She couldn't stand the man. I just don't have words for how horrendous this is. And the family just remained oblivious, even though the abuse was escalating. Ronald and Becky would continue to have more children. They went on to have 7 in total. So they welcomed 3 more daughters and 1 more son to their family. They had Loretta, Marianne, Becky Jr. and Eddie. When Ronald turned 39, he decided to retire so he could spend more time with his family. After Ronald retired, he moved the family from New Mexico to a remote property in Dover. And he seemed to be getting increasingly controlling of the family. He'd kind of moved them to like this isolated area. He was implementing really weird rules around the house. So trying to isolate everyone, trying to isolate his children. He wasn't allowing them to go over to their friend's house. Friends were not allowed over to their house. He was just very fucking odd. April of 1981, police received a phone call from one of Ronald's neighbours saying that they had seen Ronald kiss Sheila before going to school. And this was not a normal kiss. He didn't go into detail, but he said this was more of a kiss than you should ever give a family member. And it obviously made him feel incredibly uncomfortable to the point he rang the police. So later on in 1981, the Department of Human Services went to find Sheila, and they were investigating claims that she was being sexually assaulted by her father. So someone had finally taken notice of what was going on. So the people from the department went to Sheila's school and spoke to a number of her teachers and some of her counsellors as well. So the teachers and the counsellors called Sheila in, and surprisingly, she was incredibly open about exactly what had been going on, how long it had been going on. She spilt the beans on everything, which is just amazing. It kind of feels like she'd just been waiting for someone to fucking ask, to someone to say, are you okay? What's going on? What's this all about? And she let it all out, which is incredible. However, when she was in this kind of interview, she admitted to them that she was pregnant, and she was pregnant with Ronald's baby. So the people that were interviewing Sheila immediately reported this to social services, and they came and they interviewed Sheila as well, and Sheila told them the same thing that she just told everyone else. The same evening, a police investigation was launched, and fuck knows how, but Ronald caught wind of this, and he was aware that they were finally investigating him for the abuse of Sheila. What does Ronald do? Ronald says to his family, pack all your shit up, we're fucking leaving, we're off. And they run. The investigation never comes to a conclusion. They go to several different places. Ronald doesn't like to stay in places for too long because he's incredibly paranoid. He obviously knows that what he has done and what he has been doing is very, very wrong. So he knows that he is in trouble. So they keep moving about, but they do eventually settle about 6.5 miles away from Dover in a very, very remote place. What confuses me about this is, does no one ask any questions as to why everyone's lives being moved around? Why are you moving from here, there and everywhere? Does his wife not ask? Because I couldn't be dealing with moving all the time. And another thing that blows my mind is they didn't continue investigating this after they lost Ronald. Surely what Sheila has told them is severe enough to kind of carry on investigating, trying to find them and stop him hurting her. But apparently not. And apparently investigations in cases like this cannot be carried from one state to another. They just are in that state and it's isolated, which is the most bizarre thing I might have ever heard. I don't understand, obviously, American law. I'm not American, but that just seems totally bizarre. Does that mean I could commit a crime in California and then go to Texas and there'd be no record of me? Why are the systems not intertwined? That's just nuts. No? Poor Sheila eventually gave birth to a baby girl named Sylvia Gail Simmons. Again, I don't know what the dynamic was with her family, if anyone asked who the father was. I don't know if at this point they'd kind of find out about the abuse, they'd been questioning why they're on the run, or if everyone was so petrified of Ronald that they just let him do whatever he wanted. So, like I previously said, the family did eventually settle in a very, very remote, it's basically a field on its own, about 6.5 miles away from Dover, which would be the nearest town. Made sure there was no neighbours, so no one could catch him doing his filthy shit. And they were living like cave people. I have no words for how they were living and how... Just let me get to it. So the family are on a 13-acre plot of land. Ronald goes to like a scrapyard, buys 2 falling apart mobile homes and kind of, I don't know, ties them together to make one giant home. There's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no lights, there's no heating, there's no toilets, there's nothing. It's like you're permanently camping. So because there's no toilets or anything like that, Ronald makes the kids dig a pit. Just a massive pit, and that is where everyone will go to the bathroom. I just don't think... They weren't poor or anything before, and they've gone from what I assume is a relatively comfortable life to shitting in a pit, and I just don't think I could deal with that transition, if I'm honest, and not without any explanation behind it either, because I don't know if they know why they're running about, why they're living like this. Ronald's still incredibly paranoid, and just in case he's not remote enough or hidden enough, he then builds a massive makeshift fence around the, I don't want to say property, it's not really a property, but the property. And it's as high as, 10 feet? It's as high as 10 foot in some places, which is massive. There's just no need for that kind of fence. So Ronald was just on a downward spiral and just getting... If you could think he couldn't get worse of a human being, he just continues to get worse. Like, the lower you set the bar, he just crawls under it, just getting more and more awful. And he begins abusing his wife, Becky. She does leave on several occasions. It's unclear why she does keep coming back, but it's thought that she kept coming back for the kids' sake. Thankfully, Sheila does move out of the, again, property. She finds a lovely man called Dennis McNulty, and they go on to have a son together named Michael. He accepts Sylvia as his own child, and they just have a lovely, happy, healthy relationship. Although obviously Ronald struggled with this and didn't like this because he's really odd and he genuinely feels like he is in a relationship with her, which is just so bizarre. Ronald's shitty life was unravelling, and it was just seemed to be getting shitter and shitter. At this point, he has no job. He does occasionally go into town to do like handyman kind of work, but that's not really a job. And this man stinks. you wouldn't want him in your house. Like, he shits in a hole and he doesn't have running water. The man must have stank. So people don't want him in their house fixing things because he smells. Would you want him in your home? No. And he's creepy. I think I think one of the women he did some handiwork for eventually went to the police and reported him for sexual assault, because like, he was one of those men that would like wolf whistle and shout things at you and just think it's okay to touch you. He's just vile. So his license had been revoked to be a handyman after he was reported by a lady for sexually assaulting him. So he's got no license, no job, no home really. His wife desperately wants to leave him and Sheila's left him. So this man is feeling like he's at the end of his tether. Ronald decides that he wants revenge on everyone for his life being a mess, because it couldn't possibly be his own fault. It's everyone else's fault for ruining his life. Not his. Never his. So Ronald had the idea to wipe out his entire family. His wife, kids, grandkids. He did not give a flying toss how old his grandkids were. He wanted everyone to die and everyone to suffer because his life was a mess and it was their fault. So Ronald thought, Christmas is coming up. Everyone will be together in one place. You've saved me half a job. Stunning. I'll wait till Christmas. So Ronald went out and brought himself a handgun, and excuse the expression, but he was like a kid at Christmas. He was so excited about his plan. He was so pleased with himself and he couldn't wait to kill everyone. I hate this man. Because Ronald couldn't exactly wait to execute his plan, on December 22nd, 1987, he was in the living room, I think, with his son Gene and his wife Becky, and out of nowhere, he just shoots Gene and kills him. And before Becky can react, scream or anything, she's stood there, she's watched it, and before she has a chance to react, he quickly turns around and he shoots and kills Becky. Ronald then turns around again and spots Gene's 3-year-old daughter, Barbara, and he strangles her to death. This is what I don't get in this case, because the kids that he kills, what could he possibly think that they have ever done to him, that he needs revenge on these babies? It's just the most fucked up thing. Ronald then took the bodies and dragged them outside and dragged them into the pit, the cesspit that he uses and the rest of the family have used to go to the toilet. The cesspit that Gene actually helped dig, that his father was now putting his body in. After this, Ronald went back into his home and sat and watched telly and waited for the rest of his children to come home. They were at school at the time, and it was their last day of school before Christmas, so he was waiting for them to finish school, and then he was going to do something horrible to them too. When the children returned, he told them all to wait outside. He said that he had a present for them and that they needed to come in one by one because he didn't want to spoil it for all of them, which is even more horrendous because obviously it's coming up to Christmas, and you can imagine that these kids were so excited to get something off their dad for Christmas and actually get a present, and this is what he does to them. First of all, he invites in his 17-year-old daughter, Larissa. He strangles her and then takes her out to the back of the mobile home where they have a water barrel that collects like rainwater, and he holds her under there to make sure she is absolutely dead. He then does the same thing to his 3 other children, Eddie, who was 14 years old, Marianne, who was 11, and Becky Jr., who was 8. They were all killed in the same way. They were all strangled and held under the rainwater and then taken out and dumped in the pit. So you think that most people would kind of have time to reflect on the first 3 people that he's killed and then have a few hours to kind of think that that was a terrible idea, that was horrible, I feel horrible, and then you wouldn't continue to annihilate the rest of your family. But he didn't care. He clearly had absolutely no regrets, and this vile thing was then still using that pit that he had dumped half of his family's bodies in to go to the toilet. You can't possibly get more disrespectful than that. It's just, this is what I mean. I told you I'd ruin your Christmas. I'm sorry. It is just the worst thing I've ever heard. It's horrible, and I'm so sorry you're listening to me. And I'm so sorry again, because it's not finished yet. We're not done. We've still got more family to get through. I'm sorry. So it's now December 22nd, and Ronald is sat in the trailer waiting for the rest of his family to arrive, because they had previously been invited over for the holidays to come and celebrate Christmas. His son William and wife Renetta arrived, and I think they barely made it out of the car before they were both shot dead. He then picked up their 20-month son from his car seat and killed him in the same way that he killed the rest of the children. He strangled them, and he submerged his entire body in the rainwater. And this is what goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, he's a 20-month-old baby. What possible revenge could you need for it's a baby. He don't even know your name. I need to take like a little break because I'm getting really pissed off. So Sheila and her husband Dennis arrived, and he shot and killed them both as soon as they entered the mobile home. He then strangled his 6-year-old daughter Sylvia and submerged her in the rainwater thing. I should know what that's called by now. And he did the same thing to his 21-month-old grandson Michael. And he was done. He had finally killed every single member of his family, all 14 members of his own family. On the 28th of December, Ronald decided to leave his mobile home. He'd obviously got bored over the past 2 days and thought, hey, it's been 2 days and I haven't killed anyone. I'm bored. I'm going to go on a rampage. Why not? But what Ronald needed was a getaway car, and he realised that his son Gene had drove to his father's house. So he went into the cesspit and retrieved Gene's keys from his jacket pocket so he could use his car as a getaway car. First of all, William went to Walmart and bought some more guns and some more ammunition, which, as an English person, it's fucking insane that you can buy a gun and ammunition at a supermarket. If they sold that at Tesco, it's just mental. It's not, I'm sorry, but it's just not normal, is it? So first of all, Ronald made his way to a law firm where there was a receptionist named Kathy Kendrick. Ronald had a thing for Kathy, and it was absolutely not reciprocated because he was absolutely putrid, and he was absolutely fuming about this because he is an entitled prick. And he decided that, well, she doesn't love me back. She doesn't fancy me the way I fancy her, so she needs to die. So he went there and he shot Kathy dead. He then went on to a convenience store and just started firing at random and killed a customer named J.D. Chiffin. He then went on to his former workplace, Woodline Waterdrite. I'm not convinced that's right. Motordrite. I knew it weren't right. He was looking for a man called James who he just didn't get on with and thought he needs to die because we don't see eye to eye on things. I fucking hate this man. He found James, he shot James. He also shot and wounded and injured several more people in this building. He then went on to another one of his old jobs where he was looking for his old supervisor, a woman named Joyce Butts, and it was almost like it was his lucky day because as soon as he walked in, he spotted Joyce and he just started shooting at her. Joyce was hit in the head, the neck, the chest, and that was it. But somehow she didn't die. She survived. So amazing. Fuck you, Ronald. And after he had shot Joyce and decided he was done because he thought he'd killed her, he then got one of the employees, I believe she was like one of the receptionists, her name was Vicky Jackson. He held her up at gunpoint and said, okay, I'm done now. Call the police. I've done all I needed to do. You call the police. He said, I've gotten everyone who wanted to hurt me. which I'm smiling because it's just the most insane thing I've ever heard. Just because you don't get on with someone, they don't want to hurt you, you have no revenge to seek. Just because someone doesn't fancy you have no right to have everyone fancy you. Your family, your grandbabies, babies, they don't owe you anything. You haven't done anything. The reason your life is a mess is because of you. No one else. I hate this man. I hate this man. So when the police arrived, he handed over his weapons. He was cooperative. He was calm. He just did not give one single shit. And he started offering up information that they didn't even know yet. He was just so calm about the whole situation, about everything. It was bizarre. So the police obviously thought this guy must be having some form of mental break. Like, this is not normal. There must be something, like some form of mental illness, mental break, something going on for him to be behaving like this. So he was sent to the hospital immediately to have some psychiatric checks, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. Absolutely nothing. He was just a cold prick. So there's a lot of red flags that kind of led to what happened with Ronald, but I don't think even all of them could have predicted exactly what he did. It was said by people that knew the family that he isolated them more and more and more until they were completely isolated and they didn't know anyone, and that he became increasingly paranoid and irrational over the years. He'd had increasing money problems that can lead to a lot of stress. But again, it feels like he just didn't want to take any accountability for the state that he had got his life into. Like, the reason they had to move and he had to find jobs as a handyman was because he was found out sexually abusing his daughter. He had done that, no one else. It's just awful. So during his trial, Ronald made it very clear that he wanted the death penalty. He said that anything short of death would be a cruel and unusual punishment, which, if you want the death penalty, I don't think you should get the death penalty. Yes, you deserve to die, but I think a worse punishment, you don't want to sit in prison and rot for the rest of your life. So you should sit in prison and rot for the rest of your life and be left with, hopefully, the events of those couple of days haunting you for the rest of your life. You shouldn't be given a way out of it, in my opinion. This man should get nothing that he wants. So Ronald ended up having 2 trials. I'm not 100% sure why, but he was found guilty and he was eventually sentenced to death and 147 years in prison, which again doesn't make a massive amount of sense. During his second trial, which the second trial I think was actually for the murder of his family, the judge brought up the sexual abuse of Sheila, and Ronald didn't know that this was going to get brought up, and when it was, he lost it. He was like absolutely livid that someone dare mention it. And he actually tried to launch himself at the prosecutor. I think he tried to punch him, which just might as well just win a case there. But I don't know exactly why it made him so angry. This case remains the worst case of familicide in US history. I don't know how it could be any worse across, like, how it's not globally, or if there is any worse than this. If there is, I really don't want to know. No, thank you. So Ronald obviously did get the death penalty, and he smiled when he got it, which is exactly why I think he shouldn't have it. He got what he wanted, and he doesn't deserve anything he wants. He deserves to be miserable and unhappy, but he did get the death penalty, and he did die. On the 25th of June 1990, he was executed, I believe, by lethal injection. Shockingly, no one came to claim his body. I mean, who the fuck would? You've killed your entire family. Like, who's going to come and claim your body? And you know what? The final thing about this case that really pissed me off is Ronald's gravestone. I'll show you it, obviously. It'll probably be around my head right now. It really irritated me, because why should this man be remembered for anything more than what he was? And what he was is a selfish, disgusting, cold-blooded, horrendous murderer. He shouldn't be remembered for anything positive that he ever did, because that's irrelevant. Once you can't say good things to cancel out the bad. That's not how it works. Nothing cancels out what he did. So trying to make him sound like some kind of war hero on his gravestone is disgusting, in my opinion. I don't think it should be there. I think it should just be blank, if anything. Got myself all worked up. I've got myself all worked up. I'm proper angry now. I need to go and have like a 10-minute break after this because I'm angry. So yeah, Merry Christmas. I hope it didn't depress you as much as it has depressed me filming it. I do hope the quality's better on this one. Only when I looked at the last one I realised it was blurry, and I was not filming it again. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. So I hope everyone continues to enjoy their lovely Christmas. I've got a Boxing Day case coming out tomorrow, which I promise will be less horrendous than this one. Of course, it still contains murder, so it's not going to be much happier, but it won't be as bad as this one. I am going to struggle to ever beat the horrendousness of this case. Oh my God, I need a positive thought. Oh, okay, I have a very good positive thought. This is a bit of a late positive thought, but my grandparents moved to where I live. I nearly mentioned it then, and I'm not kidding. My grandparents moved about half an hour away from where I live, 25 minutes away from where I live, and they used to live about an hour and a half away. And I couldn't be more happy if I tried, because I now don't have to plan a whole day out to go and see them and leave early, so I don't have to drive back on the motorway in the dark and like really faff about. I can just pop and see them. I was at my friend's house earlier. It took me 3 minutes to drive over the road because they live around the corner from my friends. And it was just the best thing ever. So that's my positive thought of the day. And that's a very, very positive thought because they are my angels, my grandparents. So that is my positive thought of the day. But I hope everyone's having a super, super lovely Christmas. I will see you tomorrow for Boxing Day. And then after that, I've got a New Year's Eve case. And then New Year's Day, I will be uploading another video, but it will not be related to New Year's Day. Just because I couldn't find one. So we've got unrelated. We have got a very good case for New Year's Day. It's Ellen Ray Greenberg for New Year's Day. Make good choices. I actually don't have a fun sign off for this one because I'm genuinely a little bit traumatised. Writing that was bad enough. Make good choices. Don't get murdered. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you. Bye. That's pink. It looked red. That doesn't look red. That's because it's not. It's pink. That's pink. That's pink. No. Don't like pink. Do you know what, Mitchell? Pop off. This is nice. It's what? It's like Christmas cheeks. What the fuck? Well, for starters, I can't fucking see. The worst idea I think I've ever had. Why did I do that? I've ruined it all. What a stupid idea that was. Jesus Christ. I can't wait to get this glitter off my eyes. What? It did fit. What? Whilst Ronald... Come on. For the I think I need to take like a little break because I'm getting really pissed off. Bollocks. Okay. Went to Walmart. I fucking hate this man. Fuck you, Ronald. I hate this man. I hate this man. We really struggled.